Hello, world. This is Hello Chaos, the podcast that talks about the messy and wonderful world of entrepreneurship. We're your hosts. I'm Jennifer Oladipo, or Jeno.
And I'm Jennifer Sutton. Just Jen, I guess.
Just Jen today.
Just Jen today.
And we are talking with entrepreneurs, getting their stories, finding out what lessons they have to share with us as they share their journeys. Today, you want to introduce our guest?
I do. So today we've got Jalene Kanani. I hope I pronounced that right, Jalene?
Yes.
So Jalene Kanani, she is with Noho Home, Hawaii. And she is a founder of this business that we are going to learn a little bit more about. And I got to meet Jalene just to know through the 10,000 Small Business Program with Goldman Sachs. And she and I were in the cohort in 2020. So that was our COVID, our professional development during COVID. So Jalene, why don't you tell us, just give us a high level overview of what you founded, your 2-minute story.
Sure. Well, first off, aloha, and thank you for having me here today. So I am Jalene Kanani, and I am the founder of Noho Home. At Noho Home, we provide Hawaiian-inspired luxury home decor. We like to call it style with aloha. And really we bring aloha by imbuing our comforters and duvet covers, decor pillars, kitchen textiles with a sense of authentic connection to Hawaii and the Hawaii aesthetic. We hope that it connects people not only to their homes, but also to our island lifestyle and a lot of our values, and we just really look forward to sharing that in unique and authentic ways through storytelling.
So I don't think everybody knows what aloha means. I think a lot of people know the word, but can you tell us what it really means?
Right. Well, aloha, so a lot of people use it as a greeting, right? Aloha means hello, aloha means goodbye. But really what it signifies is love. So the spirit of love and affection, and that could be that transcends male, female, mother, child, human to human. It's that line of connection throughout humanity that you're sharing yourself in the most richest and authentic way with someone else. So,
right.
And whether that's through a greeting, a hug, acts of kindness, that is aloha, the aloha spirit.
Thank you. See, I didn't know it went that deep. Did you?
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah. And Jalene, your products can be found like in Target. I mean, you're pretty much everywhere, it seems.
Well, someday Target.
Okay.
Macy's, Bloomingdale's.
Okay.
And then we also we have our own direct-to-consumer website where we sell, as well as other brick and mortar retailers. And then we also do contract work. So we work with architects and interior designers, as well as hotel end users directly, to create unique experiences, whether they're place-based, culturally based, or really just interested in design.
That's fantastic.
So what made you feel like, everybody's got sort of a nugget that their business is built around, and it sounds like yours is about sharing your culture. So how did you come to build a business that was about sharing your culture with the world?
Well, so it began, as far as the sharing the culture portion, I started dancing hula when I was 3 years old, and basically hula throughout, my many years, either dancing it in a halau or hula school, moving on to dancing professionally and traveling the globe, dancing hula. That was, at the time, my way of sharing aloha. Well, as I, got older and into my career, I had worked in FF&E, so furniture, fixture, and equipment, working with architects and interior designers to specify products that would go into predominantly hospitality locales. But what I quickly found out was that there were really no designs that spoke authentically to our island culture, history, flora, fauna, our practices. So I decided just to start doing it myself, and basically self-taught, but grounded in our history and our culture and our communities, and being able to tell those stories. The component really was design. I had to figure the design out, and that's kind of become my specialty, is being able to put a lot of meaning into one little tiny motif, and then putting it onto fabric, wall covering, furniture, etc.
So how do you make that authenticity come through? Because one of the things that I was thinking about when I was looking through and like favoriting a little bedding, because we're doing a bunch of new bedding at my house right now, actually, and so I was struck by the fact that a lot of the patterns and things like that are very familiar. But I have been to Hawaii and actually went and in Kauai, and I was there as a reporter, and I did a fellowship with the National Tropical Botanical Garden. Yeah, so I was like very excited when Jennifer, sent your name across and got to check it out, because we were studying the plants and everything like that. And so, like, with that background, there were some things that I could see that were a little bit different, and kind of being a plant person. But I wonder, how do you wrestle with all that sort of, a leaf is a leaf is a leaf, tropical general things? Like, what do you do to bring that authenticity forward? You just said you squeeze a lot into a little motif. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, first I want to tell you that it is Native Plant Month.
Oh,
I'm not sure if you
I did not,
but
know
it is
that.
Native Plant, and we're actually starting our Native Hawaiian plant series. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so our first two.
That's great.
Yes, it actually launches next week. So we have our first two coming out, which is the Kukio Ke'okeo, which is the white hibiscus, and then we also have the Hina Hina. So to start to try to answer your question.
Yeah.
First off, I always think of the designs and motifs that I do as being artful. So they're always imbued with my perspective. I rarely try to figuratively draw a plant or a item or a person or anything really figurative. It's always typically very artful. Now, that said, the things that it's not just the design itself, but it's everything layered into it. So I'll give you an example. Our opihi comforter. So we have an opihi comforter, and opihi is a limpet. It grows or it lives on rocks on the shoreline. And in order to get to them, so they're considered a delicacy. So there's a beautiful shell, and on the inside, there's this growing animal, right? So in order to get to that, to eat for a delicacy for our luau's, it's very dangerous. So opihi picking is in of itself kind of a tradition and something that we kind of rally around. And so imbued in our comforter are all of these sentiments. One, the beauty of the shell itself, in my artful design. Then there's the spirit of the ocean side and ocean culture, and growing up with your uncles, going out to pick opihi because there's a first baby luau coming up, and this is excitement. It's also danger. It's adventure. And who's going to be successful, who's not going to be successful, like this whole imagery and comes to mind as someone who's connected. that layers onto the story. And then we always talk about the kauna of something. So it means kind of the duality. So when we talk about opihi and the clinging of the opihis to the rock, we also think of that as being someone like a child clinging to you. So we always call the children like, oh, my second child is so opihi. She's always, clinging to me at my leg, or she's always in my bed. So that perfectly marries the sense of this is your bed, and you're welcoming your husband and your child, and that closeness and that clinging to what you love most and what's most prized. So so that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
That is put into a lovely teal cream colored comforter. And the way that we share that, there's many levels, right? There's the level in which someone who is connected to Hawaii experiences that. And then there's the level in which someone who may not be so connected to Hawaii experiences it on a design level, but then brings something else of their own to it. So, the motif itself, even though I've planted what we call mana or spirit or energy, I've put my mana into it. Someone else comes to it and they have their own energy, and it reminds them perhaps of something else, something different. They learn about what it means to me and what I experience through our storytelling, however we communicate that on our website, in our marketing materials, as a brand follower, etc. But they say, oh, I grew up on the Eastern Shoreboard, and we have this other type of practice, and the colors just reminded me. That's another thing too. So colors are really important. Colors really bring feelings and vibes. Also textures. I'll rarely do anything that's very shiny or very metallic. Typically, they're more natural, subdued, muted kinds of feels to it. But yeah, so that was a really long answer. See, I do put a lot into a little tiny motif.
Yeah. So Jalene, when did you start your company? How long have you been around?
I started it. Yeah, so I started Noho Home in January of 2019.
Okay.
That's a lot of
ground
to cover pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yes. So we launched in January of 2019. I think we probably didn't make much in the way of sales until probably April. And then, of course, COVID came in early 2020. So it's really been a wild ride.
Yeah.
Hello, chaos.
That's right. Hello, chaos. So what was your biggest challenge? Like, was this something that you were thinking about for years and just said, okay, I'm doing it? Or was this really a last minute kind of, what? This is an idea. I'm going to, how did the idea of starting, how did that come about?
Yeah. So, I always like to say I did it for the aunties, because in my commercial work, I would.
You're and your aunties.
Yeah. My family's Nigerian. Yeah. I was talking about my aunties yesterday sending me clothes, actually.
It's all about the aunties.
Yeah.
So, so in my commercial work, right, people would see it. They would see it in the hotels. They'd see it in the banks, etc. And so they'd ask, can I get a pillow, or can I get a rug? And I'd have to say, oh, I'm sorry. Like, we either have to order 500 of them, or that one pillow is going to cost you $5,000. It was a volume business. It was a volume-driven business. So I started to think about how could I leverage, what I was currently doing, manufacturers. How could I bring it to market to the general public? And really it was it's kind of just a tipping point where people started talking about authenticity. They started caring about diversity, and having unique products, and being a little bit more thoughtful, and bringing kind of native intelligence to the marketplace. And I thought, okay, well, now's the time. It's worth it, right? It's worth it. People are going to pay a little bit more attention. They're going to pay a little bit more money to be able to, connect in that way. And so that's when I decided to go ahead and do it. However, talk about Hello. That was 2016.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we had a family emergency. And I just completely put it, we were like ready to launch, and I put it on the back burner to take care of what needed to be taken care of. And then when things kind of righted themselves, I picked it back up in late 2018 and launched in 2019.
Was it difficult to get back on track after? I mean, that sounds like it's a 2-year gap. So were you like gung ho and chomping at the bit the whole time, or did you have to warm yourself back up?
Yeah.
You know, I had to warm myself back up because, frankly, when you have a family emergency, everything else, that it doesn't matter.
Right.
So I had to warm myself back up, and then it really wasn't until I felt comfortable and safe in our family place that I was like, okay. And then I started getting excited, and I came to it in a different way. So back in 2016, I was going to do it with a manufacturing partner. I was really going to focus more on licensing. The business that the manufacturing partner was in was very price driven. It was very much wholesale. And I'm so happy that, so happy that it actually came about the way it did. When I brought it to market myself, I could drive the conversations. I could drive the partners. So I'm actually really pleased the way that it came about.
It's interesting, that pivot, right? You think you're going to go down one path, and then, sometimes when doors close or things happen, those other doors open, and it ends up being a better decision, right?
What were some of those conversations that you wanted to have, or that you were able to have differently when you were going to market in a different way instead of having that big manufacturing partner?
Yeah, so a big one is being able to tell the story. And so when you have, when in this way, when you license, and then that person that you've licensed to ultimately has the connection with the retailer, who then has the connection with the ultimate customer, you have to go through multiple layers to be able to tell that story. And everyone has to kind of approve the money spent on telling stories. Like, are we going to do this much more to include certain information in our packaging, or are we going to spend the money and the time to do signage in store to be more thoughtful? Are we just going to place things on shelves and like want them to sell themselves? So having more control, to the point of a big thing is Olelo Hawaii. So Olelo Hawaii is Hawaiian language. And one of our missions is to normalize Olelo Hawaii, meaning that it's not a cute little thing that you do on the side, but it's something that you'll have natural, organic touch points to. So it's not like we're going to sit down and have a Olelo Hawaii lesson, but for us, if you come to our website and you scroll over our navigation bar, you will see the different navigation headers turn into the Hawaiian meaning. So as you head over bed, you'll see, or bedroom, you'll see the equivalent. And then the other aha moment, which really wouldn't have happened if I had worked with a partner, was as I was manufacturing, I realized I needed my law labels. And so law labels are the tags that you see on product, and it's required that they're in 2 languages. And so I said, okay, well, of course, English. And what's my second language going to be? And I said, Japanese, because in Hawaii, we have a massive Japanese national population that lives here, as well as we have millions of Japanese tourists who come every year. So we're very ingratiated into Japanese culture and language. but then I thought for a moment, oh my God, this is my opportunity.
Mm.
And we made our care labels actually in English and Olelo Hawaii. So it's just this really cool thing where, no one's going to teach you what it says, but you can just flip the label over and you can kind of figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Here's the English, the Hawaiian. And it's a nice touch point for people who are totally oblivious to it, but it's so meaningful to, people from Hawaii. That we're specifically speaking to them.
Yeah.
But it's a nice time for everyone else.
Well, and that's kind of the big deal because native language was outlawed for a time, right?
Yes, it was kapu to speak Hawaiian language when the missionaries had come. So, the language almost died, but fortunately, there was a revival of it. First with our dancing of the hula, which meant that we could sing more mele, and then through that, there was actually a renaissance, in the 70s where academically they started to teach Olelo Hawaii in a more formal fashion, and so that has actually brought a lot of fluent speakers that are they're right after my generation. So my generation, I was kind of the first to take classes at the University of Hawaii in Olelo Hawaii, and so the generations after me actually had immersion school where they started in kindergarten learning all their subjects in actually Hawaiian language. So it's a very beautiful thing to now have fluent speakers here in Hawaii again.
So it sounded like the pivot worked out because you got more control, which I think is important as a founder. What was some other challenge, or what do you think is your biggest challenge now that you're 3 years in? 2
Just
years,
barely, yeah.
barely 3 years. What's been like the biggest barrier that you've overcome?
Okay, so I would say there's many barriers, but some of the bigger ones. One, I would say that, and it continues to be a challenge, but we've certainly gotten over a couple of hurdles, which of course is access to capital. It's a challenge for a small business. So first for a small business and then a woman-owned to have access to capital. And we were very fortunate. And I think it was actually more prolific and there was more attention to helping small businesses during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So we were able to source funds through different financing programs, at lower interest rates, so that we could continue to grow. So I think that that's a big one, and that will continue. So we have a really big partnership coming up, and now I'm going to have to fund that. And so while it's fantastic and you have great traction and you're going to do something wonderful, you still have to figure out how to make that happen. Right. So that'll continue to be something. Also for us here in Hawaii, but I'm sure it's it's really everywhere. Is overcoming the supply chain crisis, the shipping crisis that occurred just as we were kind of coming out of that. We are most certainly back in it again.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So that's a challenge that we've been able to work through over the last 3 years, but it's continuing and it's ever changing. And I think, and then the workforce, right? So we had a challenge with workforce during pandemic, but now there's a challenge coming out of pandemic to retain, to retain the numbers as well as the skill levels of human capital.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
We're one of the things that Jennifer and I talked about in, I guess it'll be a previous podcast episode at this point, but was having conversations. And Jennifer, you talked about how in some cases, you really felt like you didn't know what was going on, and you
Right.
had some good support, from somebody who already knew. And I'm just feeling like with manufacturing, with trying to do this really kind of bring this really esoteric kind of cultural understanding, to the world in an everyday product. I just am really curious about, like, if you could talk about the conversations you had to have. And I mean, was it easy? Like, was it an easy sell to say, I want to share my culture in this specific way? That's one of the awesome things about business, is that you can do that, or you can try.
Right.
Yeah. So, having your story be relevant. So what the business community is looking for is, like, how relevant is your story?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something that I really had to communicate, especially to our larger partners, Macy's and Bloomingdale's. That was something that needed to be demonstrated. Like, I could talk into their, I could talk to them all day long, but if we did not demonstrate relevancy, I think that it would be very difficult to grow in their sphere.
And I'm sorry, just how did you do that? How did you demonstrate relevancy to partners?
Well, so I rarely say this, but I'll share it here.
This is the place.
Yeah. So when you think about Hawaii, and you maybe want to, you're going to go to a Hawaii themed party in New York City. Mm-hmm. What brand are you going to, what are you going to wear? Or if you're going to kind of outfit your bedroom, because you want to have a tropical theme that pretty much resonates like a Hawaii theme, where are you going? What brand are you going to go shop for? That's a question.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have one now.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be able to rattle one off. Yeah. Besides yours.
Yeah. We have a little bit of.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
No, but honestly, I mean, we have like some coastal kind of, because we're in South Carolina.
Right.
So there is some of that, but otherwise, I mean.
Not a tropical.
Yeah. I can't think of anyone
is that,
who really
and is
owns
that how
space.
you started those conversations of, challenging Macy's? Where do you go? What brands do you guys, that's out there? So you guys became kind of a category first, I guess. Is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, so if you do go to Google and you put in Hawaiian quilt, you're actually not going to get Hawaiian quilts made by anyone in Hawaii or designed by anyone in Hawaii. Most likely, you are probably going to get Martha Stewart, Pier 1, Tommy Bahama.
Yeah. Okay. Tommy Bahama.
Well, honestly, when you asked, I didn't want to say this, but like the first thing that came to mind, you're like a party, and I was like, okay, Hawaiian brands, and I started thinking about like drinks, like Kahlua. That was the first thing that like came to my mind. I was like, yeah. Then what else? Like, people have to wear things, decorations. I have no idea.
And so. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say go ahead.
You were talking about proving your relevancy, demonstrating that you were relevant.
So when you said that, what was their reaction?
Then they had like an aha moment.
Okay.
Because they realized that yes, we in our store we have a Molokai quilt, and we have a Kailua Aloha shirt. They already have products that are directly speaking at the Hawaii aesthetic and the brand, so to say, of Hawaii and Aloha. Mm-hmm. They're just done by brands that are cartoons, or other sentiments behind them, made for other locales, not necessarily by Hawaii for Hawaii kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, so that kind of turned a light bulb on in terms of, okay, yeah, this could be relevant to the same audiences. Right. And here we do have a real native Hawaiian who business is headquartered in Hawaii, who designs it herself. It's not licensing, right? So That's another challenge actually, is this fact that I'm in home decor. There are no small brands in mass home decor. So when you walk into a department store, many of those brands that sit on the shelf are all made by the same license holders.
Yeah.
They just license the names of Nautica and Calvin Klein and yada yada yada, right? They're manufacturers, and they license all those brands, and it's the same manufacturer with all the brands sitting on the shelf. So there is no small business in that sphere. Now they're starting to be.
Yeah.
But it totally shows. Like I said, we've been shopping for bedding because we all got new beds and changed sizes and everything. And so that totally shows. I mean, I didn't know that the licensing was, but you can see it when you're looking on the shelf. And, we were at, I guess I won't call the name of the store, but a large department store. And it's like, okay, these are different brands, but I feel like I'm seeing the same thing over and over and over, even though this is Tommy Hilfiger and this is, Ralph Lauren and this is Calvin Klein or whatever. It just, it's now that you say it, it's like,
it becomes very obvious.
Yeah.
Jalene, how about your local kind of business community support? Did you have a good support network locally or within the I guess the Hawaiian business culture? Did they embrace and help promote you, or did you feel like you had to go elsewhere to get support?
No, 100%. We had this grassroots fan base that just latched on to what we were doing, because again, it just kind of spoke straight down the line, right, to what most of them were looking for in curating a home. So we just got massive support from our consumers, which led to massive support from our business community, who really wants to tell a more unique story about Hawaii, and our state government, who really wants to push innovation and manufacturing in Hawaii. So we actually manufacture in Hawaii, and I actually built out a microfactory. Yeah. So if you Google the words microfactory and mass customization, you'll find that it's the innovative trend for fashion. I've just brought that technology and that way of doing business to home decor. So the business community has just been awesome, and the state and local government and all of the resources here in Hawaii, and really our goal now is how do we continue to grow and expand and bring it to more doors per se. So expand our D2C, because we really love the D2C where we get to just talk to our customers, and we really have relationships with our customers. We would love to we'd love to expand that, as well as the brick and mortar.
So how did it feel when you realized that you pursuing your vision and your dream ended up actually being something that's furthering the vision at the statewide level? Yes, and you're making innovations in the category, and then you're also doing something that can help bring your whole entire state forward, and that your state government recognizes that and supports it.
So, and that was very intentional. So I mean, this is kind of like my second career, right? So I should be golfing, in that C-suite kind of place, and I started a new business, a startup. So when I did it, I was very intentional about it. I didn't want to do it in the same way that maybe others have tried. I wanted to make sure I was doing it with not only innovation, but cutting edge innovation. And that I was not just doing it to have, the least expensive amount of costs. We were going to employ people who were displaced by the pandemic, and we were going to participate in workforce development and we were going to participate in growing entrepreneurship in the Lahui. So Lahui means the Hawaiian, Native Hawaiian community. So I was very kind of thoughtful and intent about the missions beyond being able to bring our designs to market. So I don't think that I would have done it if it were just single-sided. It really wasn't just about, I want everyone to see, our fantastic designs, and I want to make money. It was really more about, everyone keeps talking about this kind of business where we are, we are looking at it holistically. We're solving, we're solving all these issues. We're addressing all of them meaningfully. But everyone would talk about it, but I was like, let's just do it. Like, let's see how it can be done.
Right.
And so that's kind of
Jalene,
what I did.
How did you have those conversations? Well, did you start reaching out to the folks at State Commerce? I mean, like, how did you start were you already involved in the business community because of your previous career life, or were you entering into rooms that you had never been in before? I'm just curious of what was that journey like?
Yeah. So what was really kind of cool is that, so I definitely in the business community in Hawaii, I had tons of contacts, but the contacts were pretty private industry contacts, supplier contacts, globally. And definitely not, I never tapped into state and city and never tapped into those networks. And even in the private sector, I was known kind of for a little different thing. So I was going into rooms that I had not been in before with topics that I had not discussed before. So while some of the people might have been the same, they were like, "Wait, what are you doing? And what's going on?"
Have you?
So I was very fortunate. Yeah. So I was very
Have you had that
fortunate
experience?
Huh?
Have you been having that experience?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been having that experience the last 90 days, 100. But even I remember when I started the business 10 years ago, it was that same process of it's different and scary and intimidating, but then you feel energized when people start to respond to your mission and your vision. Yeah. I
always tell my people that they have to create a vision, because a lot of times when you walk into a room, no one has a plan for you, right? Even when you walk into a meeting with a customer, a client, a banker, whoever it is, they don't make your plan. You make your plan. So you have to have a very clear vision of what you want to come out of that room with. And so you have to paint that picture. You have to illustrate it. You have to make them feel very confident that you know what you're talking about, and they're just coming along for the ride because it's going to be good. So that really is, and I got a lot of, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Okay. All right. Wait, how do I help you? Right. And I think that's just how, that's how it has to happen.
Jalene, when you were talking to, you said kind of entering this new space and talking about innovation from a state level, did you recognize that going into those rooms, or as you started telling people your vision of bringing this authentic Hawaiian brand and bringing that relevancy to the category and the industry, is it because they responded to you and said, "Hey, we want to jump on board because you're making our state look more innovative," or did you already have that and you were telling them, "I make you more innovative"? I'm just curious of what side of the table were you having those conversations?
Well, I think that, the state itself has this goal. There's even an office. There's the Hawaii Technical Development Corporation. So there's even an office that's tasked with trying to figure out, how do we bring innovation to Hawaii? How do we allow our companies to innovate? What resources can we bring to them? But ultimately, in private industry, I'm seeking the innovation. I'm finding out what it is, and then I'm bringing it, and then I'll be like, hey, you wanna jump in on this? Like, can you help me out? How can we work together? And so ultimately, it's I'm bringing the innovation. I'm bringing the ideas because they didn't have that idea.
Right.
It's my idea. But once I shared the idea, then they helped me to get there.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
I think it's about time we have to wrap it up.
Yeah, I know. Jalene, we're going to wrap up here. I'm just curious, if you want to give kind of a last minute message of, if you could look back and you're, talking to another entrepreneur that might have an idea, what would you tell them? What are some tips that you would give them from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, founder to founder?
Well, I think I would circle that around kind of your mental health, in a sense of, one, you need to be very persistent and you need to be very resilient, and there are always going to be problems that seem insurmountable, and you have to take them kind of in bite-sized pieces every day, and in that moment, because every day something will come up that that will seem like a challenge, and there'll be large challenges that are on the horizon. The persistence to just start kind of picking at that slowly, one thing at a time, kind of I feel like that prevents you from just quitting, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you talk to any entrepreneur, they wanted to quit a million times.
That's right.
And so really the only difference between an entrepreneur and a non-entrepreneur is who someone quit, right? Like if you had an idea and you wanted to be an entrepreneur, you're either it because you stuck in, or you're not because you quit. And quitting's okay too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
That's totally fine. So it's really just, how do I get over the next hurdle, and then talk and community. People need to surround themselves and have a safe group of people that they feel comfortable sharing their challenges with. Right? So a lot of times you don't want to tell people about your challenges. You kind of hide it. You keep it in. Yeah. You stress about it yourself. Find yourself a really small, close community of entrepreneurs that you feel comfortable sharing with, bouncing ideas off, asking if they have any resources, within the team. I always do this, a good CPA team. And to that point, our Goldman Sachs 10,000 group has been kind of a place for that over the last few years. Yeah.
That's right.
You've heard many a rant.
Yes, you've heard many a rant on mine too. So that when I had my oh shit moment last year with just with workforce and talent, and I think you're right, having that community. And I found these little pockets. I don't know about you. I've got the 10,000 cohort. I've got a couple of local communities. That is a safe space. Did you find that you've got more at a national level, like the 10,000 small business, or do you have some local, like a local community of other founders that you formed?
I do. So, and it's really funny that you say that, right? So I have the local level, and then I have the national level, and they work really great independently because when I really just want to throw things, I'll talk to the national level because, there's, when you live in a small community, it's a small community, right? So, I'll put certain things there. Plus, too, there's some IP, some intellectual property, like may not exist in our group here locally. So I'm reaching out to this group here, and then locally I have a network who understands my everyday context, right? This is, this is the community that we live in. This is the way that we do business uniquely here. We can physically interact and have more of a a one-on-one personal relationship. So that's very valuable as well.
And are these other founders and entrepreneurs, or are they, is it a broader kind of business connections?
So both. So I have a community of entrepreneurs that actually the core of them came through an accelerator program that I worked with, and so some of us alumni continue to keep talking and sharing, and then there is like the next layer, which people like my bankers and a community of investors, a community of design. So actually each of them have their own little pockets where there's 2 or 3 people that will connect, and we'll kind of talk about, okay, well, how do we move forward in this particular segment,
right?
How do we want to grow the industry as a whole? Those are great conversations to have, great relationships to have.
That's right. Yeah, those safe spaces are important.
That's what we're hoping to be here, is that safe space. I mean, it's getting broadcast, but still, I think those conversations, need to be had. I was in a mastermind group for, I think about 1.5 years, maybe almost 2 years, but it was like, weekly, mostly self-employed, but some people still in business. And it was just the best thing to meet up and just be honest. And, half the time it wasn't necessarily work stuff.
Right. And what we found too, Jillian, and I think that your advice is good, of find that community. And because I think there's some entrepreneurs and founders that haven't quite found the courage to even engage in an accelerator, or sometimes in a, apply for these like the 10,000 Small Businesses programs, or a minority business, incubator or startup. And I think what we're trying to do is kind of break down those barriers, so that we're normalizing the conversations, we're normalizing the behavior of, you need to build the community. Yeah. And that community, like you said, you might have multiple little communities. With it's just wherever you feel comfortable having the discussion and the dialogue with whatever you need to have, whether it's funding conversations, or maybe it's category and industry conversations. Maybe it's just like, hey, this is a group I can ask off the wall crazy things, or maybe it's just, I call it, I have a small, group that I meet. I call it my therapy group. It's for everything. Of I'm having a meltdown moment, and they bring me off the ledge. So I think it's, like I said, we're just trying to normalize that. That's okay.
Yeah,
you need
that's
that.
how it happens.
That's how it happens. Yeah. Every founder, every entrepreneur is tapping into those networks. And
your problems are not unique. Absolutely not. Someone else had the same problem, and they work through it.
That's right.
So that keeps me going on some days.
That's right. Yeah. I've done that. I've done the same thing. I'm not alone.
Right.
I'm not alone. And it's a refreshing, just that it is an aha moment often to go, I am, just knowing that somebody else has gone through this, and if my connections don't have that advice, somebody out there within my connections can probably engage with me or connect me with somebody else that has gone through that.
Or save you 1,000 hours.
I was telling Jennifer, in a earlier conversation, in an earlier conversation of, it's the, walking into a room, and yes, I've got my vision I need to share, but sometimes, I'm trying to get something out of that other person, and I don't even know what questions to ask. And sometimes that's intimidating, just to go, how do I prepare, for those room conversations and those networks, and I remember when I started the one company, the the marketing company, I didn't even know what questions to ask because I hadn't formed my community yet. And now I have a community, and I'm walking in some of these conferences. I'm like, I don't even know how to prepare. So as you, like you said, it's like these little mini journeys, right?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think you said several things that are going to be really, really helpful to a lot of people.
That's right.
And I'm just so excited to learn about your company and the backstory. I mean, you can see it there when you're looking, you know, at the D2C website. I haven't encountered it in the stores or anything, but to hear that backstory is just really great. I mean, just to build something from such a deep foundation,
right.
That's great.
And pushing it forward.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
you're literally you're a trailblazer within your space, both at the design and concept, but also at the factory level and the manufacturing level. So I think that's key. It's like two-sided, you know? So it's exciting, Jalene. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking story with you all this morning. And I'll look forward to doing it again sometime when you're on your second.
Yeah, we gotta
That's
get
right.
folks together eventually. I think that's what we need to do.
That's right.
Get everyone in the room.
The follow-ups, right?
We'll have to follow-ups,
totally.
little live meet and greets or something, or virtual meet and greets with our folks.
Speaking of follow-ups, though, I think if we could get some of those resources, especially some of the things that you talked about with the micro manufacturing and some things that other entrepreneurs might want to consider and maybe hadn't thought of before, would love to get just like a short list of little, resources like that or concepts that people can look into as they're moving their stuff forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Happy to.
Thank you, Jalene. And thank you, listeners. We hope you enjoyed this one, this podcast from Hello Chaos. And where can we can see this? Like, you can hear this anywhere, wherever you access your podcast.
Yeah.
And then it's also going to be distributed in the City Innovate zines.
Right. So directly in there, and all you have to do is subscribe, share your name and email. That's it.
That's it. It's free. So it's free content.
Yeah.
No paywall.
And it's good stuff, as you can tell, as we've had this conversation today.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jalene.
Thank you, Jalene.
All right. Aloha.
Aloha.